Okay, so I am in my Azuma stage or my auntie stage. We do have a word for it too. In Kazakh, we call older women who are not related to us, we call them apai, which is like Azuma. It's an older sister. And in Russian, it is in Kazakh. And in Russian, they say tetushka or tетя, which is like oftentimes it could be your mother's or father's sister, or it could just be somebody, an older woman. So I am in this stage of my life and I really am loving it. And I really love that I have been able to work with a lot of young people, and I continue working with young people. And let me tell you that young people are not treated very nicely in the modern day and age. We as adults don't realize how much trauma is guiding our behaviors. We think that children do things intentionally. We think that children mess with us, that they play games with us, that they don't do things just because they're naughty, just because they're lazy, they're stupid, whatever. The whole boomer talk, this is all that has to be dealt with in therapy or in your little mental health support groups, or maybe on your own. Of course, it has to be resolved collectively. It cannot be resolved individually, whatever. But what you have to bear in mind is that you cannot take it out on the children. What you have to remember is that a child is in a more vulnerable position than you are. At any time of the day, of the year, a child is going to be in a more vulnerable position than you are. So never treat a child as if they're responsible for your feelings, they're responsible for your bad mood, whatever. A child, of course, is a person, first and foremost. And in ancient societies, children were not treated as half humans. They were given the responsibility, but they were also given the respect and the fair treatment, the just treatment that the adults experienced as well. They actually received a much more equal standing and footing in many societies. Myths of Male Dominance actually deals with that. This book I mentioned by Eleanor Burke Leacock, an anthropologist, a Marxist anthropologist. She actually talked about the treatment of children too. She talked about the treatment of the children in indigenous communities with whom she had a chance to live with and learn from. And she pulled from Jesuit manuscripts as well, of the French Jesuits who were living with those people, colonizing these people, let's call things what they are. But she also talked a little bit about that, and a lot of the anthropologists and they used to be called ethnographers of the past they looked at indigenous communities and they saw that, children are treated very differently to the Eurocentric, if you compare them to the Eurocentric communities. Children are treated almost like little adults, like they can't do things, they can't decide. But of course, they're a little bit smaller and they're a little bit less knowledgeable and experienced just because they didn't have as much time on this earth to learn all of these things. So there was a lot of respect for childhood, I would say. Obviously, it differed. History is not linear. It's not like, the ancient societies treated children much better than now all the time. No, of course, there were periods in history where children were mistreated, used as slave labor, used as cheap labor, used as pawns in some kind of political games that people have been playing throughout different socioeconomic formations. But the earlier stages of development of humanity actually prove to us that there is no inherent need for us to discriminate against children. And the fact that we do is solely because they're more vulnerable and we can take it out on them without any repercussions. No one is going to come and arrest us. Even if we abuse children, people still may get away with it. It happens all the time. Unfortunately, I have observed all kinds of neglect and abuse of children in my 17 years working at an international institution. Most cases were not bad enough to get any kind of child services involved, unfortunately. And it's really frustrating when you only have legal means at your disposal, when you cannot do the whole sweeping in, trying to rescue a child type of a scenario. But also, of course, you do not always see the whole story. The family dynamics were very diverse at this institution I worked at. But anyway, going back to us treating children as inferior humans and taking out our anger on them, our frustrations, We have to admit to ourselves that we're all victims under capitalism, and we have to act accordingly. We have to understand that it is very convenient for the powers that be to let us target certain groups of people, be it immigrants, gays, children, women, you name it. We're going to, consciously or not, feel vindicated and feel like we have gotten our satisfaction too, and so therefore this hierarchical system works. So therefore, no, we don't need to abolish capitalism. We don't need to overcome capitalism. If we are given groups of people to mistreat when we are mistreated by those who control the means of production, by those who stole the access to the means of production or wiggled their way into manipulating the resources that should be shared by everyone. So we have to admit to ourselves that because of this trauma, the fundamental trauma of capitalism, we may be prone to discrimination. And children, unfortunately, are the easiest group to discriminate against. So please, if you're a parent, if you're a caretaker, if you work at an institution that deals with children, please remind yourself of this. Children can be hard to deal with. Children can be insufferable at times, usually because something else is happening for them. You've got to be patient. That's just it. I've never been a patient person. I was a very impatient person, but I learned to be patient for the sake of the children. Yeah, I know, toot my own horn, but I was forced to learn to be patient because I loved my job and I wanted to continue working with young people because I was so inspired by their curiosity. I was so inspired by the way their eyes started gleaming when they understood something and they never knew I could see it. And this innocence, this curiosity not yet touched by the corruption of capitalism, I lived to see it, and it became more and more sparse as years went by, as economic crisis after economic crisis kept on hitting us. But I digress. So children do not have the same intentions as adults do because they're not yet fully aware of their own positioning in society. They're just learning. Their limbic system is not fully developed. They cannot have the same control over their emotions as adults do. Many adults have worse restraint than some children do. Okay, I have met my fair share, usually, of men who act like absolute toddlers. Some toddlers were much more well-behaved than some grown-ass men in my life. So I worked with people aged 3 to 70. And I am telling you that sometimes it will take a lot of effort, it will take a lot of patience, it will take a lot of time, but it is possible to establish a trusting relationship with almost every single individual. Again, it takes time, it's hard, you've got to put in a lot of effort, but it is possible. I've worked with all kinds of interesting cases where people had all kinds of needs, and 99.9% of the time, I was able to find some point of connection. This is what I keep on advocating for. You can find a point of connection with most people, not everyone. And again, yes, it's hard. It's gonna take time. It is not a Disney movie where everything's gonna fall into place just because you're such a good person. No, you have to be good through your actions, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to realize that you may not even reap the benefits because these children are going to grow up and go off, have their own merry life. And you should be fine with that, because you should be doing that not for the sake of feeling good about yourself or for the sake of some kind of praise or some kind of acknowledgement later down the road. You should be doing that because these children are going to be your doctors, the people in your nursing home. These are the people who are going to be repairing the building you're living in. These are the people who are going to be preparing your food. These are the people who are going to be taking care of the next generation of people. So even if out of pragmatic necessity, treat children well. And I think that it's so strange and bizarre that I have to remind people of that, but I see the mistreatment of children still all the time. And it is incredibly upsetting, but this is how it's going to continue to be while we still live in this kind of socioeconomic formation. Learn what capitalism is first, and then you will see, you will understand why under capitalism no true human relationships are possible, no true human connection is possible, and why children will continuously be abused under capitalism. It is not going to all magically resolve once we start building socialism. This is why it was not magically resolved in the USSR, where I was born. But still, it is going to take a few generations, but it is possible. It is possible not to mistreat children. It is possible to respect children. It is possible to have good relationships with children, and it is possible to reap those benefits and actually feel good about yourself and actually have great relationships with other people, children or not. So let me know what you think. I hope you have a great day today. Consider support me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first. Subscribe to me on all the social media, even though I don't do much there, and I'll talk to you sometime later.